when I first began discussing with my colleague Johannes de Jong, also from the, I've got to get it right now, Christian Political Foundation for Europe, we were realizing what really needed to happen was there to be a call for solidarity across Europe. And at this time of great fragmentation, a time when people are being pulled back into their national identity for their own security. And yet we recognize that we as the body of Christ don't have the moral authority because we don't show that solidarity because of these two splits we were talking about before. I come from an evangelical background, and the word solidarity to me was something associated with trade unions. And it was through Catholic thinkers that I began to see how biblical this concept was and how important it was for us to grasp what solidarity really is. You see, Catholics tend to see the woods, Protestants tend to see the trees, evangelicals tend to see the branches. And we need help to see that big picture and understand the biblical roots of it. And so I'm personally very excited that Monsignor Piotr Mazurkiewicz can be with us. He's come from Warsaw. He was the General Secretary of the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Community. Now that may not say much to you, but it was actually publications from this group more than 20 years ago. I began to read and realize I needed a much bigger picture. I needed broader horizons. I would like to ask Father Peter to join us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The organizers asked me to talk about the transition from crisis to solidarity. And in this title we have two words, one Greek by origin and the second one Latin. I think more or less we understand what the word crisis means because it was mentioned that we apply this word to economy, to environment, to politics. In every domain, the meaning is a little different. I think that in medicine, probably this is the closest meaning to the etymological one. In medicine, the doctors are using the word crisis to describe a paroxysmal attack of pain, distress, or the turning point for better or worse in acute disease. So this is the turning point. You don't know if the situation after the crisis will be better or worse, but it's very clear you cannot continue. There will be a change. When we are thinking about solidarity, so here the concept starts with the Latin legal institution in solidum, which means as a whole. Joint obligations consisted on the fact that there was a multiplicity of entities either on the side of the debtors or on the side of creditors, but the commitment was only one. So the fulfillment of the provision by one of the debtors relieved from the debt the others, and similarly, the reception of performance by one of the creditors resulted in extinction of all the remaining claims. This institution, for example, was used in a situation when there was an obligation resulting from a crime if there were several perpetrators. But here the word solidarity indicates the legal capacity of each member of a group to accept all the benefits due to the group, or to take the responsibility for the whole debt. I am not surprised that in your church you are not so familiar with the word solidarity, because it was not, also the Catholic Church was not very familiar with this word. Modern career of the word solidarity begins during the Enlightenment, and Pierre Leroux declares he is the first who introduced this Roman legal concept of solidarity into the modern social philosophy. And he believed that the presence of the poor in the post-revolutionary France is caused by the lack of appropriate institutions, which would effectively solve the problem of poverty. And he postulated to replace Christian charity, referring also to emotions, by human solidarity. So the word was introduced originally against Christian vision of social relations, with the idea that, as in the Enlightenment, you could resolve every problem if you just was able to find the rational answer. And here the answer was that with the system of taxation, the state should take the whole responsibility for the poverty. And in this moment, if you will be able to organize well social services, state social services, you will not need any help from anyone else. It means that the poverty will disappear, but at the same time, you don't need the social ties among people, because the problem is resolved by a cold institution. Thanks God, this concept of solidarity totally is forgotten. And one of the risky elements in this concept was that if this was the competence of the state and also the duty of the state to resolve the problem of poverty, it means that there was less sympathy among people, because all those who paid the taxes said, that's enough, I did my duty, I gave money to the state. So if I will make another gesture to someone on the street, I will pay twice. I'm not foolish. That's one element. But the second element here, or risky element, is that the whole concept is also built on the idea of that a person, a human being, should be self-sufficient. So there are those who are self-sufficient because they are rich enough, they have good enough income, and on the other hand, they can be self-sufficient if they will receive their property from the state. So what is due to them? Because the state should make them self-sufficient. And in the Christian thinking, it's not like this. In this sense that solidarity, as we are perceiving this concept in Christian thinking, in Christian reflection, so this is something which is possible only among people who are wounded. And because we are not self-sufficient, so we need each other, and in this case also we need solidarity. There is a beautiful text of Saint Catherine of Siena, which in the Catholic Church is one of the patronesses of Europe. And this is a revelation when Jesus is saying to Saint Catherine, you see, do you think that I wouldn't be able to divide all the goods such a way that everyone would have all the talents and everything he needs? If I haven't done this, this was purposely, because I wanted to create a situation that my creatures, human beings, need each other. And they have the opportunity to make a gesture of love, because they have something the others haven't. So this is the space where the solidarity can be born. We need each other. We are not self-sufficient. If I'm right, the reflection in the Catholic Church on solidarity started only with the events in Poland, so after 1980. After the strikes in 1980 in Poland, there was created independent trade union, which was called Solidarity. For us, I suppose, it was not clear where is this word coming from. Only after years we found that this is this forgotten socialist, French socialist tradition. But then, because of this dramatic situation in Poland, also with this trade union, so the Pope, John Paul II, he decided to explain what can be the Christian meaning of solidarity. And the first biblical text he referred is from the letter to Galatians. Bear one another's burdens. In Gdańsk, the place where this trade movement was born, was organized, the Pope said, bear one another's burdens. A concise sentence of the Apostle is the inspiration for interpersonal and social solidarity. Solidarity that is one and the other. And if the burden carried together in a community. So never one against the other. Never some people against the others. And never the burden carried by man alone, without help of the others. With the idea of solidarity is thus associated the awareness of a burden which should be carried, and that you cannot just throw off your shoulders and escape. And the second element is a sense of community to which one belongs, and which ensures that in his misery he is not alone. Next to me is going another person who helps me carry my burden. You may ask why. Why someone unconstrained takes on his shoulders the yoke that is not his. He was allowed, as in the parable on Good Samaritan, that's the second text. He was allowed not to do this. He could just look on me and then, like the Levite and the priest in the parable, pass by on the other side. And even if today, under the influence of this parable, of the Good Samaritan, there is a written in the law obligation of aid to the victims of the road's accidents. But at that time of the gospel, no one could blame him. So the question is why Samaritan stopped. Beaten man did not belong to his family, not to his nation, nor to his religious community. In this respect, everything separated him from the half-dead man. What stopped him was human misery. His behavior has no clear rational explanation. He is a man from the outside, someone completely alien. And he feels compassion for the suffering of another human person. And if you are searching in the text of the Gospel for the difference between the reaction of the Levite and the priest and the conduct of the foreign man, you will find it in a very modest word, which St. Luke adds a way to describe the situation. When he saw him, he had compassion on him. That's what was absent in the reaction of the God's servant returning from the temple. This compassion in front of a human misery spontaneously provokes solidarity. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ, writes St. Paul. There's a wonderful comment of St. Augustine, and he's referring to an observation made just nearby from here, on Cyprus, by Pliny the Elder. And this is an observation from the life of Diers. The Pliny wrote, "Stags cross the sea in herds, swimming in a long line, the head of each resting on the haunches of the one that precedes, each in his turn falling back to the rear. This has been particularly remarked," writes Pliny, "when they pass over from Cilicia to the island of Cyprus. The reason for proceeding such a way was the wave of the horns, which makes unable for a too long time to keep head above the water. So you can observe a kind of solidarity among animals. But when we are talking about solidarity, it's not just about this form, that there is a kind of help. I mention one element, that's the question of compassion. It's very important not to limit our concept of solidarity to what we can observe among animals, because this kind of solidarity you can observe, for example, in the mafia. So a kind of solidarity in the evil. So that's not just that we have common interests. There must be a different reason. And when we are looking for the reasons, it's very clear that the first what is coming is flesh and blood, work and speech. So family, nationality, class bonds. But if the Samaritan would think in these terms, he would pass by, and we would not know the answer on the question, who is my neighbor? So, what is so important is that the Pope mentioned his teaching on solidarity in Poland in 1987, when the memory of victims of martial law was still alive. And in this moment he said, never one against the other, and never some people against the others. The essence of the Solidarity Revolution was a rejection of the Marxist theory of class struggle. And it was possible thanks to the religious inspiration of the movement. One of the Polish thinkers, Mirosław Dzielski, wrote at that time, "Faith determines the space in which political activity is permissible for us, the space between the rebellion against slavery and the duty to love our enemies." So, in Christian revolution shouldn't be important against whom we are fighting. What is important is what for we are fighting. And this means that this Christian inspiration helps us to recognize that also our enemies are members of our community. Not only as compatriots, not only as human beings, but as children of God. So, to discover that the other person is also created by God, saved by Christ, and the blood of Christ is the price Jesus has given for the person which is recognized now as my enemy. But the way Jesus is looking on him is different than mine. And if, from Jesus' point of view, the salvation of my enemy is possible, that's because this is a human being which has immortal soul, which has the conscience, which I can try to convert. So, on my side is also the responsibility, partially responsibility for the salvation of my enemies. And the sign of hope here is that our Polish story is showing that this is possible, at least with some people. So this revolution of solidarity in Poland was possible also because some of our former enemies discovered that they are human beings, that they also should respect moral rules, and then join our way of thinking. And this is giving hope. When